What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Lansing Marketing Hackers. I'm Paul Schmidt. I'm the owner and creative video strategist for Unique Use Multimedia. We do video storytelling for nonprofits and socially responsible small businesses. And I'm joined by my cohorts within the Lansing Marketing Hackers team, Chad and Julie. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'm Chad Muntz. I'm the digital sales manager at WLNS Channel 6 here locally and part of Nexstar Media Group, the largest broadcast company in the country now. And what I do here is just kind of help design custom digital marketing campaigns for our customers to help them achieve their goals. And as today we'll learn that we're talking about finding qualified candidates for your open positions, but we do that as well as drive new customers in the door to your regular business. So that's what I do here. Julie?
Yeah, such an important topic today. Hey, Chad. Hey, Paul. I'm Julie Holton. I am the owner and principal strategist of M Connections Marketing Agency. I'm going to be moderating today's discussion. So at M Connections, we are a full service marketing agency, everything from websites to emails to social media. We do it all. We've had a lot of change in strategies, a lot of shifting over the last year, as we've all had. And we're spending quite a bit of time now working on today's topic, working on hiring and recruitment, short-term, long-term, right now, just about anything you can get, depending on what industry you're in. So we are so glad to welcome you to this month's virtual event for Lansing Marketing Hackers. We invite you to comment in the chat box on Facebook or in the comment section on our YouTube live stream. Let us know, who are you? Where are you coming? Where do you work? What's your situation right now with hiring and recruitment? What questions do you have? What comments? I'm very excited today to be moderating a panel discussion where we're going to hear from experts in the field who have some outside of the box ideas kind of to get rid of the box, because right now anything goes, I think, with the situation we're facing. Also want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for our Lansing Marketing Hackers events. Symposia Labs is a full service marketing agency based out of Grand Rapids, and we are so thankful for all that they do. They are very mission driven, relationship driven, full service marketing team. So we thank Tim Haynes and his entire team for the content that they provide as they help us choose these topics, and for their sponsorship. When we get back to our in-person events, they are the folks who provide us lunch and help with our venue. So thanks to Symposia Labs for all that they do to contribute to Lansing Marketing Hackers. So with that said, guys, I think we're ready to dive into today's topic. So let's introduce our panel. Our topic today is how to hire when everybody is hiring and also when nobody is applying. So we have a great panel for you. I'd like to ask each person to take a moment to introduce themselves. We already heard from Chad and who Chad is at WLNS, but joining us, we have Julie and Joe. Joe, why don't you first introduce us, let us know who you are and what you do, and give us some perspective on your role and when it comes to hiring and marketing.
Oh.
Joel, looks like you are muted.
Technology. Hey, great.
There we go.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks for having me, guys. My name is Joe Winkiel. I'm with Capital Area Michigan Works. I'm a business services officer here at Capital Area Michigan Works. I'm part of a team, excellent team that goes out and helps companies with recruiting. And we all have different sectors. I work on the IT and the healthcare sectors, but we have different sectors that kind of help out businesses and act as an arm of their HR departments.
Joe,
So
thanks
thank
for
you.
being here today. Yeah, we really, I look forward to your insights that you're going to share. We had some pre-discussions, of course, and it's going to be a great conversation. Julie, would like to introduce you as well. Why don't you give us same thing, little perspective on your role in hiring and marketing?
Fantastic. Again, thanks everybody for having me. This is, as you will all quickly learn, a huge passionate topic for me relative to hiring. My name is Julie Mann. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer at Neogen Corporation. Neogen Corporation is located in Lansing, Michigan, founded in 1982, based in Lansing, Michigan, and we have a full international footprint relative to our company. And what we do, we're food and animal safety as well as genomics for the entire industry. And, you know, one of the things that's really always fun to say about Neogen is that, you know, by doing what we do and offering such diverse solutions in food, beverage, all the agricultural industries, at the end of the day, if anybody listened to this call ate food, and I hope you did, and I hope you didn't get sick, of course, that I can guarantee you that somewhere Neogen probably had a hand in that food chain. So we protect the global food supply. So as a company that's over 1,800 employees globally, we're constantly hiring and constantly looking for good talent. So great topic. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Julie. And Chad, I want to have you kind of give, I know you introduced yourself as it relates to being on our Lansing Marketing Hackers panel, but why don't you give us an idea of kind of your role and what you're going to talk about today when it comes to hiring and recruitment and marketing?
Wonderful, thanks. We looked at this a few years ago, actually, when we saw this was an issue, and really what we saw that the high level of targeting that we are able to achieve on the digital online marketing space has really changed the way that companies can approach their recruitment strategies. The main point being is, and you know, PowerPoint to share, but is really looking for those passive job seekers, those people who might not be on job boards. They might not be triggering any of those typical targeting mechanisms that we use in digital marketing to show that they're in the market for a job. But we do know job titles, we know industries that people work in, and then we can target them that way and say, you might not be actively looking for a job, but boy, this is a great opportunity you should consider. And so we've worked with lots of companies over the years to refine that process and really get it right. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys today.
Thanks, Chad. Yeah, I know that targeting can be really key when we're trying to find that very specific type of job applicant, and I look forward to talking about that. Okay, so, let's paint a picture first of all. Let's dive right into our topics here. Let's paint a picture for what the landscape looks like right now. You drive through town, you see yard signs everywhere with now hiring, competitive pay, different benefits. There's a lot that we're hearing, a lot of buzz about this. Joe, from your perspective, can you paint a picture for us of what the landscape really looks like right now?
Well, I will tell you that most employers are in the same situation. They are looking for talent, and everybody is having that difficulty in terms of trying to find or trying to reach out to those particular candidates. As you mentioned, the unemployment in the area is anywhere from 4.5% to 5.5%. Those numbers are fairly low, and employers have to be doing everything and anything to try to reach out to those particular candidates. Whether it is social media, whether it's traditional media, they should be doing it all. They should be trying to get out there as much as they can to try to go after those candidates, if you will, and any resources possible.
Julie, what are you seeing from your perspective at Neogen? What does the landscape look like right now? You mentioned, 1,800 employees globally at any given time. I imagine you have a lot of open positions. What do things look like as you're working on hiring?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. One of the things that's interesting, I mean, from Neogen's perspective, is we are constantly hiring. We at any given time probably have 70 to 100 positions open. And that's, a lot of that is just the growth of our organization. But when you look to the landscape, Joe mentioned we've got unemployment at 4.5% to 5.5% for this area. So in essence, when you translate that, when you're looking at that from a talent acquisition lens, you're basically saying it's zero. And that means that there is zero capacity of people looking. When you get that low an unemployment rate, it basically says that there are no candidates out there. 4.5% to 5.5% is really, really small. So, what we are finding is that, even though we have the open positions, and even though, we are a company with good purpose, and, even though we're a growing organization, and, all of those things that normally you'd say candidates look for to tick the box, the applicant flow still is slowing down slightly. And so, that's that, I love the title of this, how do we hire when everybody's hiring? And it really is finding multiple ways to get in front of people. The other thing that we're kind of reacting to from a talent acquisition standpoint of view is that now we have people who are all trying to look for jobs in different ways, right? You have people at home, so they're not going to see the yard sign. You have people who are more adept as far as social media, so you can reach some there. But all of your ability to get in front of people and brand, it has to just kind of have a multifaceted approach, or you're just not going to get everybody. And again, everybody's really slim. So you're going after that passive group who maybe wasn't looking, but maybe you can get that one eye open. And that's a different strategy than when the supply and demand curve is shifted and upside down from where we're at today.
Yeah, and I see Joe and Chad both nodding in agreement. Chad, when we're talking about how to market open positions and how to reach people in some of these different areas that Julie just mentioned, how do you attract applicants and specifically the right applicants for the positions?
Right. Can I share my screen? I put together a few slides that I'd like to share. So I will do that now. Okay, and I think.
Do you want one of us to hum the Jeopardy tune or anything?
No, that's a good idea. Okay, well, it worked in. Let's see here. I'm going to open this up a little bit further and share. Okay. And cool.
There we go. Okay.
And you can see my PowerPoint?
We sure can.
All right, great.
Put it in presentation view.
So yeah, I wanted to cover a couple local trends, target audience, and digital strategies to reach these folks. And this is very interesting, looking at digital advertising or using online resources to hire folks. In 2020, last year, in the Lansing DMA, so that's our 5-county area, we spent $22 million on advertising for recruitment. 79% of that was online platforms. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, to say using digital advertising as a method to recruit is big right now would be an understatement. For perspective, 2 years ago, that number was like at 59%. So just in a couple years, it has exploded. And really, that pie chart's a little small, so I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit for you. But this is kind of the breakdown of what. Oops, no. You can see paid search is a big deal. So Google AdWords, if you combine these two, that's over 50% of digital dollars. Digital display. So if you take the green and the orange together, targeted is obviously the way to go. Video's huge, 17% and growing, and video is a big part of telling that story. And so this will be kind of an implied endorsement for Paul on what he does. And then email is in there too, and that's an important piece too. And so kind of in trends and what's been happening here, taking a look at like this is Google Trends and just jobs near me in Lansing, Michigan. And you can see over the past 5 years, I pulled this here, the trend is going up. People are searching online and looking for jobs. And what the first thing they're going to do is if they find an open position or something they're interested, a company they're interested in, is they're going to visit your website. And the whole idea is they're really interviewing you at this first step. And so as an employer, what have you set up to paint the picture, to tell the story of why you're a great company to work for? First step would be, do you have a careers tab that people can easily navigate to learn more about what the job looks like? If not, that's probably going to be your first step. On that careers page, how are you telling your story? Using video is crucial. And I'm going to give you an example of a good video that tells the story of why that company is a good place to work. So that's going to be really important. As Julie mentioned, and I mentioned as well, if you take a look at this chart, your active job seekers are in the 5 to 10%. Those are people that are, actively on job boards, on LinkedIn, and places looking for jobs. Then you have your group that's the semi-active that are, I'm kind of looking. I'm not really serious about it, but if something pops up, I'm going to peek around a little bit. And then the majority here, your passive candidates, that's really where the gold is. These are people who have good jobs. They're happy at their jobs, but like I like the way you said that, Julie. They might have one eye open on something like this and say, with the right message, you can convince them to take a look at your job, and some of your signing bonuses or benefits might be better. Your pay might be better. So you might be able to attract those folks over. And then, kind of to put a pin in the video portion of this, are you using videos to tell your stories? Because video over the past couple of years has grown. People just know and like to interact with it. And it's a tremendous way to really get your point across in a short amount of time. And just a little statistic from Bright Cove over the past year. So this is 2020 statistics, and with COVID and with binge watching on Netflix and Prime, this wouldn't be that surprising. But still, I mean, it is huge increase year over year for online video usage. And so then, your stories, you have a great job to sell. Your company's a great company to work for, but you really need to be able to communicate that because, with passive job seekers, there's little things about the job that's going to the years. And so if you can help paint that picture of what that might look like if they move careers over to your company, that's the way to do it. So with that in mind, kind of how we target candidates, geography is kind of your first step. How far do people travel for this job? Are you looking to recruit people that, it might be a high level position that you're expanding your search to a regional kind of 5-state area? Maybe it's a national search, but for typical, it's about a 30-mile radius. How far would you drive to work? Anywhere from 30 miles to 50 miles, something like that. And then demographically, now Google and Facebook have been a little bit tighter on this. So in certain instances, you're going to be able to use these demographic profiles. Others, you are not going to be able to. But age, gender, parental status, household income, education, ethnicity, these are all demographic standard targeting profiles that we can use. Interests and behaviors. Again, this is changing day to day because people are down on cookies, basically that little piece of code that reads your browsing history, and we're able to target you real specifically. But that technology is sort of going away, and we're using non-cookie targeting, contextual targeting, things like that. So we use a combination of that. Keyword targeting is a thing. So if we can keyword target specific job positions that people are searching for and put some sort of advertising, whether it's video or display advertising online for them, we're able to do that. And then, of course, using first and third party data. And that's kind of like, us being a news site, we have this first party data on our users who come to our site. So we have the ability to take that and marry it with third party data to get more specific. And then occupation and job titles, especially with email. So getting email databases that have those specific positions within the geography and putting that message in front of folks, and you can utilize sort of those video windows that make you click through to the website and things like that. Really effective. So kind of using a combination of these targeting methods. For us with Nexstar, we use our first party data from like 200 plus websites, and use the third-party data that we purchase, like from Equifax or MasterCard and things like that, and we put them into our data management platform and able to kind of create this thing we call intelligent targeting. But it's really advanced stuff, and Julie, you were talking about how do we reach the right people? Well, this is part of the formula. And then what are the ways we do that? With targeted display, that's something that we utilize a lot. It's all brand safe, nationally recognized websites. Geofencing is something that you may have heard of, but in terms of recruitment, if you're looking for a specific, say it's in a manufacturing capacity and you're looking for a very specific position within that, we can target your competitors within that geographical range and really just put a circle around the manufacturing facility and tag all of the phones, the mobile devices that are in there, and then retarget them over the next 30 days. They're going to be aware of this open position that you're offering, and it's going to be the people that you want to hire. So that's just a really cool way to do that. With targeting video, obviously, using video on YouTube or social media or on your websites, or pre-roll video is big. So those are the kind of things we use video for. Social media is really important. There's lots of statistics where people, when they're searching for jobs, they're using social media. They're looking at companies' social profiles and things like that. So as I mentioned, Facebook and Instagram have really limited that just because of discriminatory practices and things like that. So that is not as specific as it used to be. But, if you're looking at LinkedIn, for instance, there's lots of targeting you can do in terms of job title and types of businesses to target. Paid search, email, and then implied endorsement from local news sources. I wanted to show you something that we got into, and I don't mean to monopolize a lot of the time. I'm almost through that here. But, measuring performance is really crucial to this, so that you're getting a return on investment. And with digital marketing, that's where we really excel. We can tell exactly where website traffic's coming from. Once it reaches your website, what are they doing? Are they filling out the application online? Are they bouncing out right away? We can tell all that stuff from a digital marketing campaign. And then, kind of finally, one thing I wanted to show you is we got together over the pandemic. We realized that the employment was a real crisis, and people are just having a really hard time. So our news department got together and said, what can we do to work together? You guys have all this great advertising that you can use, but as a news organization, we want to bring awareness to some of these job opportunities. And so we created this thing called our Job Alert. And essentially we're including a segment on open positions for specific companies in our area and put it right on the news. And we use morning news because that's when a lot of people are watching and paying attention, have that in their head. And then we do it again in the afternoon. And then we utilize some of these other digital marketing strategies, but we put this together and we put a price point on it, and it has been just super popular. And the best thing about it, it has been working really well. The word's just been getting out because we're using all of our voice to make sure that the community at large in the Lansing region is aware of these things. So that's kind of, some of the things that we're doing here locally to help local businesses, make sure that their story is being told in terms of why they're a great company to work for. What are the signing bonuses? What are the benefits? What are the things that make them stand out against some of the other competitors? So hopefully
Chad,
that's long-winded.
No, that was great, because I think what, if nothing else, what I took from that is when the market is competitive, we have to be competitive. We can't just simply post a job and expect the applicants to come. We have to really work at it. And as both you and Julie have talked about, this takes a multifaceted, many level, layered approach to getting the word out. And Chad, you also at the beginning of your presentation, you were showing us how it's not just about the positions you have open. It's about who you are as an organization and how you're telling that message. I think that speaks to both the short-term and long-term marketing strategies that I know we've all discussed. Joe, I would love to hear from you. What you would add, how you are currently looking at these open positions and how you're guiding businesses in reaching applicants.
So some of the things that we help out here with area businesses is actually helping them write up the job description. And, that boring job description that you might have had 5-10 years ago needs to be changed to the current times to get people interested. You almost want to have them envision themselves into that particular job. So listing those bullet points and all of that, yes, they're necessary, but having 15 to 20 bullet points might not be as necessary as having the main bullet points talking about company culture. Chad, I think you mentioned it in there. It's super important to have company culture and talk about that. Maybe a few lines if you can, and then kind of a video description once they go into the website, talk a little bit about the company. But what we're doing is we're helping companies kind of write their job descriptions and helping them with that. We're also helping companies kind of post to different areas throughout the community. That's something Capital Area Michigan Works does. So, not only social media, Facebook and those things, but Pure Michigan Talent Connect and, a number of different sites like that. And we try to link up our customers with some of our partners and training providers and all of that. So there's different things that we try to do in getting some of the smaller and larger companies linked in to different marketing areas.
Joe, you just mentioned Pure Michigan Talent Connect. And just in case we have anyone who's listening in and watching that isn't familiar with that, can you talk about that just briefly and what that does in our area?
Be happy to. So Pure Michigan Talent Connect is the official job website for the state of Michigan. And both employers and job seekers can use it. So the job seekers, they can post their resumes on there. From a employer perspective, you can post all of your jobs on this particular site, and there's no charge. If you're an employer also, you can look for candidates on Pure Michigan Talent Connect. And the beauty of it is there's no charge for it. It's free. So it's a great resource, it's a great tool. If you're not familiar with it, please sign up for it. Contact us here at Capital Area Michigan Works. We can help you out with that.
Thanks, Joe. Julie, you've talked about some outside of the box kind of strategies that we have to kind of dig into our tool chest as we're marketing these open positions. What are some things that you're doing right now when it comes to marketing? How are you reaching people? How are you, trying to attract the right audience?
Sure, Julie. So I think one of the things that's really important from a talent acquisition standpoint of view is that good hiring is a component of an excellent HR strategy. And so you've got all of these different mechanisms that are the reach to find that right person, which is really, really important. I want to cite this. I read an article just the other day. Forbes is now saying that more than half of workers in North America plan to look for a new job in 2021. So if we're not hearing that, that is such an important sentence, because that goes to, we have to have strategies out there to get to those open positions. But more importantly, the full HR strategy, if you want to say, of how are you going to win the talent war, which is going on. It's very active right now, is more than ever, what's your culture and what's your differentiation, which makes you that place of, where the people want to go work. And you have to be very actively engaged, whether you have openings or don't have openings, is really getting the message out there that we are looking to hire the best talent ever. I love having conversations with our CEO, because if we're talking about talent, his comment will always be, Julie, I will hire as many good talented people as you can find. And so it's that talent space. So we have to have the right outreach to be sure that we can locate them. But then we've got to be sure that once we bring them in, that complex environment of finding that person is supported within your HR strategy. And that includes your recruitment, your selection, your hiring, your onboarding, your people development once they get in the role, because you really want to be careful that you expend all the time and energy on getting the person in the door, and then you don't continue to nurture that relationship once you get them there, so you're not continuing to refill that same position over and over.
Absolutely. The only thing worse than having open positions is having turnover. Very quickly turnover. Yeah.
Hey, Julie, if I can add something to that, retention is a really big piece too. And Julie, you did touch on that. You do want to be able to retain your workers in any way possible. And that's kind of looking over that culture, finding out what's going right and what's going on. And that temperature check, you might be used to a temperature check monthly, it might be every other week now, or you might be a temperature check every 6 months. That temperature check might be monthly, or quarterly. So you have to look at that too, because you do want to keep the staff members that you have, and you want to keep them happy.
Absolutely.
If you go back to Chad's presentation on all the digital impact, and we've had great success with that digital reach, with the video reach. Chad's an absolute wizard on this stuff. If nobody's had that individual conversation with him, but so much of that retention is going to be your ongoing branding. And so whether you're recruiting or not, and I think, especially coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, that whether you have positions or not, and some companies aren't hiring yet, but they're going to be. And so we have to be very aware that the time to brand is now. The time to be sure you're getting your messages out there when everybody has time to engage in social media at a hyper rate. 314 million hours, I think that's what that was. Chad was like, wow. Now 100 million of that's probably my kids, but still, like, how do you take advantage of that now to say people have time and people are on social media and digital platforms at a higher rate right now, to have that messaging so people understand, the type of culture that you are and the type of employer you are, so that when you have those openings, they'll go, oh yeah, I heard that ad about so-and-so, or I saw that messaging about this company. They sounded like a neat place. So it's not a time or expense loss if you're really focused on that branding, because that has to be an ongoing space of talent acquisition, or you're just, you're always fighting the fight, as opposed to, I have always talked about, hiring as a funnel, right? You always have to be filling the funnel, and you always have to have people going all the way down through the funnel, coming out the bottom, resulting in a hire, and then having a strong strategy to be sure that you capitalize on that retention. So,
and Julie, it is kind of, for companies, out of sight, out of mind. So if you're not out there in the community, if you're not on social media, it is super important that you do get on there right now. It is super important that if you're going to be hiring in the fall, you start your, what I call your campaign right now. You don't want to start and stop your campaign because quite frankly, it's more expensive to do that. You want to continue that campaign. You want to continue that message that you're hiring, that your company's a good company to work for. And you're right, Julie. I mean, it should pay off.
You know, it's interesting too, when Chad had that pie chart up on the screen showing where people are spending where employers are spending their money in the Lansing area. Because I think that's really cool too, to note that was just the Lansing demographic area. So that's where we are spending our money on hiring and recruitment. And when I looked at that pie chart, I saw, of course, what's probably working for people because those were the biggest areas, right? Online, paid search. But I also, looking at that pie chart, that to me looks like a lot of noise. That means there are a lot of dollars being pumped out there right now into hiring and recruitment. So how are you going to get your dollars to stand out, especially in such a competitive market right now? We have a question that I want to jump to from Daniel in the audience. He has asked, could you speak to non-financial incentives being used to find and retain quality employees? We kind of threw out there just kind of anecdotally, maybe having a sign-on bonus or other incentives when it comes to the hiring process. But I think it's really important that he's asked about non-financial and finding and retaining and quality. Those are kind of the key words that stand out to me. Anyone want to tackle that first?
I can tackle that. So keeping employees, training is one of the ways that you can keep an employee. What does their training program look like? What does their career path look like within the company? And those are things that you would want to discuss with your future candidate on different growth opportunities or different training opportunities. Because if you're training somebody, they're going to be more interested in wanting to stay with that particular company because they're getting that education, because they're kind of growing up or going up that particular ladder. So I would say if you're offering training, that would be huge for anyone because they can see that progression. They can see their career progression within the company.
Definitely. Chad, I want to ask you, I know you've been working on this job alert campaign that I've had the chance to see some of those numbers. It's been very successful since in the time that you've been running it. Are you seeing a lot of companies that are offering different incentives, financial or otherwise? What kind of trends are you seeing there?
Yeah, yep. It's I think younger folks especially are really interested in how is your company giving back to the community. So some of the community activities you're involved in, what volunteer opportunities exist for employees. I know that even we've hired a couple new folks and brought up the fact that, on June 17th is our Founders Day of Giving. So we all have the opportunity to volunteer for one of 4 nonprofits that we get to choose to volunteer for. And that kind of thing goes a long way, right? So that's a specific instance of a non-financial. Signing bonuses, I've never seen more companies offering them than now. That is a financial one, but it's still a big one. I think it pops out to people. It stands out still. If there's specific benefits that you might have, like if it's daycare, or if there's some sort of membership to a gym or health system or something like that. Those are things that also stand out, that I've seen.
And members of our audience who are watching, if you have ideas or questions, feel free to jump in. We want to be able to share what you're doing, what you're thinking as well. So feel free to pipe on in the comment section. Okay, so Chad, you actually mentioned this as you were talking about some of the different maybe non-financial incentives, but how do we market to different generations? I know this is a topic that came up as we were all on our planning call, because depending on who you're targeting, the reality is there are different ways that you're going to reach different people. And Chad, you mentioned kind of maybe younger generations thinking about, being kind of civic minded and thinking about how companies are giving back. But I'm curious to hear from each of you if there are changes in your strategy, where you're reaching different generations, different experience levels of people. Joe, let's start with you. Are you, marketing, helping businesses market to different generations in different ways?
So it depends. I mean, what we do with our companies is basically it depends on the position that they're looking for, I guess.
Right.
Just one of the cases here a few weeks ago, we were not getting any responses from candidates regarding a position, and we ended up texting particular candidates, and those candidates were getting back to us with those particular texts. So it's different strategies. It just really depends on that job opening. God, it's a really tough situation. So I think as on our call before, what we talked about was the generations that we try to go after. If it's an older generation, that older generation being 38, 40 or above, we go with both traditional media and social media. If we're trying to reach that younger audience, it's more geared towards the social media, so Facebook or some of the other platforms on there. But again, it just varies from company to company.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Julie, what about you? Do you switch your strategies based on generations?
Yeah, so I'm going to circle around a couple of things. So from a generational standpoint of view, as we all know that, going into any open position, we're a very inclusive, diverse employer. We don't always know what that right candidate looks like, right? So they could be earlier in career, later in career, mid-career. And so, from a strategy standpoint of view, I wouldn't say that we focus in on a generational approach as opposed to, again, I'll go back to some of the comments from the beginning, is we know we need a multimodal approach because we can't predict the best candidate that's going to fit the job. And many times it's not what you think you were looking for. So you either get stuck in the purple squirrel mentality where you can't find anybody who's going to fit what you think you need. Or with the talent war the way it is, you just have to be a lot more open-minded to what the right candidate looks like. And sometimes you're hiring talent as opposed to hiring for a job. And you figure out how to bring that and assimilate that great talent into the organization. And it might not be exactly the job description, but we've all had that interview with somebody where you're just like, oh my gosh, I've got to hire that person. Where do I put them? How do I fit them into the organization? So when we look externally, just to be sure that we're getting a good applicant pool that gives us that diversity and looking at candidates, we do more of a broad stroke. But again, I'll go back to different generations will engage differently. So therefore, that's why, when we opened up, I said, you've really got to have a multifaceted approach because different methodologies are going to interact with different people depending upon either their space and their career journey, their current work situation. There's a lot of things that kind of factor into that, which has a difference on how they look. So, I would say that we don't modify the strategy for generations, but we do modify and have got a broad brush of stroke to be sure we get the best talent.
Yeah, and what I like about what you're saying too, especially, is that you have to look at all aspects and be open to trying a variety of things. And Joe, you mentioned that as well, reaching out through text message. I don't know how many of us want to get a text message about it, but
it worked very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have
if you answer it, then that's great. That's what we want. You know what I mean? We want that response.
Right. And we have to think beyond what we want and think about what our job applicants want.
Sure.
For sure. Chad, I want to come back to you and ask, what are kind of your top tips or resources to share either with the employers or with the job seekers right now?
Yeah, with employers, the tips are get specific with some of the messaging for your particular job openings. We've run campaigns for someone on this call that have had different advertising messages created for different positions. So here's the warehouse advertising message and why it's important and why it's such a great job. Here's the sales position for this same company, but it's a different message, right? And here's for the scientist, for instance. Okay, you're looking for a biochemist. That has a very different message than the warehouse, the forklift operator, right? So tailor your message to what you're hiring for. Absolutely generationally, take that into account as to what media you're using. YouTube works really well to reach young folks because it's just so highly used by that demographic. So we would utilize YouTube. Facebook reaches guys like me really well, but Instagram's gonna reach the 20 and 30-year-olds a little bit better. TikTok is something that this is going to be a plug for our next Lansing Marketing Hackers topic, because we are going to dig into how businesses are using TikTok specifically to reach a new audience and specifically to sell their product or service or to hire. I'm
going to give a little quick plug for Paul Schmidt, who's running things behind the scenes at the moment. But on Monday's show of Expert Connections on WLAJ, Paul did an entire segment about TikTok and video on Instagram Reels. So if you missed it, check it out on the website, WLAJ.com. But Paul does an entire thing. No dancing, unfortunately, not to, spoiler alert, no dancing, but he talks about businesses using TikTok. So great segment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's it, and with our job alert idea, to incorporate getting these jobs out on our news product, that reaches it's in, I'm not going to kid myself that 21-year-olds are watching our morning news, but their parents might be, and that's the whole idea, is to get that word of mouth going, like, hey, I heard this company's hiring, because it does get out to a huge audience. It's an older audience, but that's where you would use a media like television for something like that. So
yeah, and we'll throw that information in the comment box so people have that direct connection to you, Chad.
Perfect.
Julie, what about you? What resources or tips to share?
I'm going to go back a little bit to our question that came in to the chat box about non-financial incentives to attract and retain. When we think about what are the tips to share for employers and for the job seekers, the evolution of work right now is accelerating at a pace that we've never seen before. So we are in this dynamic, evolving work environment of how do we support that? How do we create new work structures? How do we create new places? How do we help workers evolve into all of those different things? And how do we do all this around this dynamic, changing world of work? So, that non-financial incentive piece becomes really big, because all of those things I just said, in my opinion, is going to be the employer that's going to win. We're all trying to figure that out, and I hope you're spending time there as an employer, because that's what's going to attract the candidate that says, I have some things that are non-financial about how I work or what the workplace feels like, that's really going to attract that talent. And I think that's very, very important as far as the tips for both the employer and the job seeker, because the demands are going to be starting to look very different. So we have to all think about, what does that next new dynamic world of work look like at our company? And that answer is going to be different for every company. And I'll tell you, the companies that figure it out are going to have a much better seat at the table for that talent space as we go forward. And, at Neogen, I can tell you, we don't have it figured out, but I can guarantee you we will. And we're talking about it every day. And, we're gonna be that employer, but everybody's trying to figure that out. So that non-financial incentive space to attract and retain is going to become even more important than it's ever been, in my opinion, as we go through what does the next phase of the world of work look like, relative to the job seekers and to the employers. I'm going to kind of say a little bit, kind of marry everybody's thoughts together. But from an employer standpoint of view, as an employer, the biggest challenge for employers is please understand what you're looking for. Even when we have hiring managers come to us, they say, oh, well, Joe left, so I need to hire a new Joe. Well, do you? Are you doing replacement hiring, and or are you thinking about what the business needs for that next hire? And usually when a hiring manager comes to you, they're thinking about the replacement hire. And we all have to be able to help Chad and company like that who want to say what we're looking for. We have to know what we're looking for. And so that's not an easy conversation, and it's not simple, but we have to have it at that point that we're looking to enter into that market, because otherwise, if you don't, from the job seeker standpoint of view, and you've all been one, right? You get into an interview and the people don't even know what they're looking for, or it changes throughout the course of the interview schedule. So it's really important to job seekers to be able to be sure that the employer knows what they're really looking for. Now, back to my other comment earlier, a little bit contradictory, is sometimes you hire for talent and you're going to switch that. So you've always got to be, from a messaging standpoint of view, you might all of a sudden be in a conversation where you thought you were hiring for X and you're like, this is really good talent. Say it. Hey, you're really good talent. I don't see how you fit here, but let's continue to chat. So for employers, be upfront, employees and job seekers, be sure to know what you're looking for too. I say to every single person I interview, this is a two-way street. This is me trying to figure out if you can be successful here and you figuring out if you want to be successful here. So interviewing and hiring is not just, I'm going to talk at them and figure out if they're going to work here. The job seeker has to do just as much internal reflecting on their needs for purpose, work environment, workplace, to be sure that you have that right match. Because if you have that right match, then you're getting to success and then you're getting to retention. So all of those things together, I just think are, so important. And I can't say without ending the sentences for that job seeker, don't forget that Neogen's hiring too. So Neogen.com.
We'll put that info in too, Julie, so that everyone has it. Such important points though, and really helpful. I know that when we're in crunch mode and we have positions to fill, it can be really hard to think about long-term strategy because we're so focused on immediate needs. But Julie, you bring up such great points. We're going to be back in the cycle again if we're not focusing on these things. So even though we feel like we're up against the clock, we really need to be thinking about these things long-term as well. Joe, I'm going to ask you about resources in just a moment. We have a question that I want to take first from the audience. And Rayanne is asking about any recommendations for pre-qualifying applicants. A resume can only tell so much. And she's finding she's spending a lot of time scheduling phone interviews just to get ghosted or to find out that they're no longer available for a job. So any thoughts on pre-qualifying applicants?
Well, I'll just kick in on the ghosting and the having another job. It's happened at a frequency rate that I've never seen before. And I've now learned from Joe that I'm an older person because I'm over the age of 38. I will continue to call myself the younger person, but I guess I'm now an older person. But, that is happening at a frequency rate that is just amazingly higher than I've ever seen. So one of the things I would say to her is it's not just you. And not that gives you the answer, but it does help you at least say it's not me. Because when you're in that recruiting space, you're like, what in the heck am I doing wrong? Because I just keep getting ghosted. I get ghosted or they have another position. So from that standpoint of view, no, you're not alone. From a pre-qualification standpoint of view, you can have some, whatever your knockout questions are. And again, sometimes we'll do that through a text crawler or, a quick intro form, whatever your applicant tracking system is. But, you ask some of those quick pre-qualification questions, and usually it's around geography and compensation and availability. But you can that'll help you reduce that sourcing. And then the other thing is think about from a sourcing strategy, make your sourcing strategy can be, again, a little bit multi-tiered. So you don't take and do the full sourcing conversation on step one, because sometimes you do that and then all of a sudden you get to the end and then you go, oh, well, we can't go forward. So sourcing, sometimes multi-tiered helps, but you got to be specific on pre-qualifying, which goes back to what are you looking for. And then the other thing I'm going to say is that, again, because of where we're at from a war on talent standpoint of view, speed is king. So you've got to be ready to move. You got to be ready to move forward and to really reach out in a quick fashion, even after you've had that conversation. Because if you let people sit idle for 24 hours, if they're good, they're gone.
Well, Julie, for the record, I thought you were under 38. So
good comeback, Joe. Good comeback. Yeah.
But again, just reiterating what Julie said, ghosting is just happening so much right now. Even before the pandemic, we were seeing ghosting at, 30%. I don't want to throw numbers out, but 30%, 40% as you're talking to different companies. And that number has gone up considerably. The only thing I can offer is for the applicants to be genuine. If they really want to apply for a job, to apply for that particular job. don't just apply to apply. Again, that's from applicant standpoint, though.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been so insightful, all of you. Thank you so much, Julie, Chad, and Joe, for sharing your insights. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here? We have about just a few minutes left. If anyone in our audience has any final questions, anything, you guys, that we have not talked about that you want to make sure that you fit in, now is your chance.
I'd just emphasize the use of video is huge. I would say if you don't have a strategy to create a why work here video, get that in place immediately. People are interviewing you before you're interviewing them, and they're looking on your website and they're looking for a reason to apply, and having a really strong video. And I would suggest going to Neogen's careers page and see what they have, because they put together a very high quality video that tells their story, has testimonials from current employees, and really gives you a good feel about what kind of company it is to work for. But that is the future. It is current, and it will continue to be an important part of your hiring strategy. That's how you tell your story.
And it will help you to be competitive for those that don't have videos. Plus, I hear when you're checking out Neogen's video, I hear they're hiring. So you can check that out too while you're on their website. All right, we have one final.
Gave us that good idea on the video.
See, you have to know when to bring in the pros, know how to get that competitive edge. Okay, we have one final question here I'm going to ask. This is coming from Chaz, and he says, at what point do you as an employer change the requirements for positions? I still, for instance, he says, I see clerical positions requiring bachelor's degrees at $13 an hour. Is this something that you all have encountered at actually, changing the pay rate, changing the requirements for positions?
Absolutely. Here at Capital Area Michigan Works, we offer a number of services for our businesses, and one of those things would be labor market information. And it just happened a couple of weeks ago where the pay was very low, and we offered some labor market information to where that pay was adjusted, as well as the requirements for that particular job was adjusted as well. So doing a little bit of research, checking the market either quarterly, bi-yearly, any of those tips would really help out in finding the right candidates too.
And then, I would just add to that, right now in the external market, that $13 an hour is a big point that people are talking about right now. In Michigan, minimum wage is still $9.65, and I'm not saying that that's what the wage should be, but 13 is above that $9.65, right? But what, from an internal and an external standpoint of view, what companies are constantly doing is scanning the external environment for pay rate information, as well as their internal environment, to be sure that, the whole ship, is structured well. So, that I'm going to call it that change, that impact, that movement that might happen off of that $13 an hour is really, a lot of it's going to come with a combination of those two things, because companies have to be internally and externally competitive. And so, a lot of times you'll say, well, why don't you just raise that to 15? That's easy. Well, especially from a job seeker standpoint of view, there's a lot that kind of goes into that formulary, if you want to say. But as we continue to move forward from an economic standpoint of view, we're gonna see pressure on those things, and and we are gonna see change just as we've seen it now. I would say, and Joe, I'd be interested in what you have to say, but I would say a year ago, probably pre-pandemic, it was more in the 12-ish range was kind of that talked about number. And now 13 is the talked about number, and then sometimes you hear people being 15 being the talked about number. But, where we're going through right now, again, as a corporation and as a society is all going to have pressure on that.
And you're absolutely right. It's $11, $12 was that figure a year and a half ago, and now it's 13 or north of that. So, yeah, things have changed quickly, quite frankly, in the area in terms of pay.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, Julie, Chad, thank you so much for joining us today to share your insights. And thank you to those of you watching. If you want to connect to our panelists, please feel free to do so in our chat box on the web links that they've shared. And mark your calendars. Our next Lansing Marketing Hackers event, Chad already gave it away. We're going to talk about TikTok, all things video reels. And we're actually bringing in an expert from Nexstar Media Group to talk about how they're actually using TikTok successfully for businesses, which we're all really excited to hear, whether we have to dance or not, or what's involved there.
So
we're also going to have a couple local businesses sit on a panel to talk about how they're using TikTok and Instagram Reels and the success they're seeing out of it. So this is going to be a really great panel. August 18th is the date for that one at noon. So mark your calendars now and we'll get that information posted soon. So thank you again for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you in August.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.